Hi guys, have you ever had gear lube come out of your, what do they call that? Not a reservoir, but anyways, out of this oil reservoir here, have you ever had oil come out and spray all over your bilge? Well, the first time I took it out this year, it was down here at the ad line and I had no oil going anywhere. And I thought everything was good because last fall, right before I winterized it, we pulled the lower unit off and resealed everything up because I was having a leak that was every time the boat would get hot. After I'd go about 10 miles, we would start losing oil. And it was getting to the point I had to add a quart of gear lube every time we went out. And that stuff's almost $14 a gallon now. So I pulled the lower unit off and replaced all the seals in the lower unit, and then I winterized it. Well, this year when I took it out, the first time the oil level was here and everything was cool. Well, the next time I took it out, I went ahead and filled a gear lube up to the full line here and took it out. Well, went and ran about 10 miles, and when I stopped, I raised the hatch here to make sure everything was all right, and I had gear lube all over the alternator, all over here, and big puddle of gear lube down there. So I couldn't figure out what was going on and whether it was overpressuring, and I thought I had an overheating problem. So I did find out it doesn't leak till you go at least 5 miles at 3,500 RPM or so and get it good and hot. But I found if you stopped every 45 minutes and dropped the lower unit down into the water, it would cool it off. But anyways, it would still come all the way up and I'd have gear lube running all the way down all over everything. I did know that I had a leak right here where the wires go into the monitor. That's what this is called, the gear lube monitor. So that's why I had that saran wrap, but it was just a slow leak. And with a little bit of research, I find out that these all start eventually leaking and have to be replaced. But anyways, this has got a one-way check valve. And that's what that little red thing is right there. That lets the air in, but it's not supposed to let anything out. Well, I'm thinking I got a overheating or an overpressuring problem in the lower unit, but one night I got to thinking, I remember seeing a little washer laying right here. So guess what my problem was? This little washer here, just like what you have on a garden hose, goes inside this cap and prevents the oil from raising up and coming out right there. So if you ever have gear lube flying out all over the place, make sure you've got that little washer inside your cap to seal this thing off. So I'm worrying, thinking I have a bigger problem than what I did, and all it was, and in hindsight, when I pulled this off to reseal up the lower unit, I had pulled that washer out and laid it there to keep from it getting lost, and I just never forgot to put it in, because the reason I took this off was there was this milky foam inside of there, and I took it off and flushed it with mineral spirits and dried it out, and I didn't want the mineral spirits to affect the integrity of this washer, and so I had pulled it off. But anyways, if you want to know where your leak's at, in your lower unit, if you ever want to know where your leak's at in your lower unit, there was never any oil on the concrete except for if it sat over the winter time. We would get a little drop of oil coming out right there, and it'd just be about the size of a quarter there after it sits all winter right there. That was it. No fishing line there, pulled the prop off and everything, and couldn't figure out where the leak was at. No leak into the bilge. So last fall, I pulled the unit off here and split it right there. Still could not find a leak. And before I took it off, I made a homemade testing kit, and this is just an automotive vacuum or fuel pump pressure gauge that you can buy at AutoZone, Advance, O'Reilly's, anywhere like that. We used to use them a lot in your cars back in the 70s and 80s to adjust a carburetor by the vacuum on the mixture on the carburetors. But anyways, I took a wheel valve stem and cut the end of it off and put it in there, so I would have the Schrader valve that I could pump up with a bicycle inner tube and just your typical gear lube adapter to go to the end of the lower unit to fill it up. So I would pump this thing up. I think 17 pounds is the most that you can, maybe it was 7, or I don't know, you need to look it up, how much pressure you can put into a lower unit. If you overpressure it, you're going to blow a seal. But anyways, that's what I would do. Pressure it up with bicycle. Of course, you got to drain all the gear lube out. Screw this into the bottom, and I took the monitor off on the inside and plugged it with a golf tee, and to keep it from leaking, to seal it off. And I would pressure this thing up, and I'd let it sit for an hour or two, and there would be no drop in pressure. So how do you find a leak that only heats up when the boat heats up? Well, I always suspected the O-ring right in through here on the shaft that comes up above the impeller. Your impeller's right down here is where the leak was at, because I would get that oil coming out right there. No oil anywhere else, no oil on the... Anyways, pulled it off, replaced this seal, that seal, put a new impeller in there, even though it was only a year old. But if you're going to all that trouble, you might as well replace it. And then I had to replace these gaskets up here, and that seems to have fixed my leak, until I forgot to put the washer in the top of the gear lube monitor. So if you get oil spraying all over in your bilge out of your gear lube monitor, make sure you've got that O-ring in the cap. It might be something simple like that. So okay, we went about 80 miles, and I wanted to show you the gear lube monitor didn't go up hardly at all once you cut off the, won't let the air vent out. It holds the pressure and keeps it down. Typically it would be bubbling up when without that gasket, it'd be bubbling up and all the way up to the top. So make sure you have that gasket in. Boy, it's a beautiful day on the Ohio River. Come out here on a Wednesday on my day off, and there's nobody around. Sit here and go 50, 60 miles for a little cruise, and I think I passed another boat. I think I'm gonna head on down to, can't decide if I want to go to Evansville or Louisville. Maybe both.